Hello, my name is Irene Schomburg, and today I would like to share with you a fantastic and affordable method of using diagnostic data to increase the success of your treatment plans and have your clients feeling better faster and allowing you to get to the root cause of their imbalances. This system takes the guesswork out of clinical prescriptions, and results will be noticeable, but will also be seen in pathology results. This makes our work as natural health practitioners much more credible and more likely to be accepted in the future by modern medicine. In this video, we will discuss how we can use infrared spectrometry and standard blood testing to gain insights into the health of our clients. We can use this data to pinpoint the imbalances that might be making them unwell or uncover the underlying causes of disease. I will show you the Oligoscan, which is a handheld infrared spectrometry device that provides cellular information, including heavy metals, vitamins, and minerals. This intracellular data, along with bloodstream data, is what can set us up for success, assuming we are interpreting this data correctly. And I'll show you how to achieve this. So a little bit about me. I graduated as a nutritionist in 2019 with a Bachelor of Health Science from Endeavour College. But I've had a long-term interest in toxicity and its effects on the body ever since losing my husband to brain cancer. He was 38 years old and my son was only 6 at the time, and I had not yet begun my studies in natural health. I'm the kind of person who always wants to know why things are the way they are, and I needed answers to why a perfectly healthy 38-year-old man would die from this disease. My husband grew up on a farm in Mount Gambier, his mother dying of motor neuron disease, and his father surviving pancreatic cancer. That's a lot of serious health problems in one family, and I wanted answers. My husband and I worked together in the IT industry for many years. But after 18 years of intense and constant stress, I just couldn't take working in this industry anymore. So I looked for a career change and decided to go down the pathway of natural health. On the side of my studies, I attended many toxicity summits and read book after book relating to toxicity, and still do. The world is changing at an extremely fast pace, and we are learning new things about these chemicals all the time. So there's no end to the learning. I also care for my mother, who was about to turn 98, and she moved in with us after my husband passed away to help me finish my studies and help care for my son. Years on, and my hair got greyer and my son got taller, and we welcomed another teenage boarder into our home. My business, Eat Right for Life, continues to grow and evolve along with a changing economic climate and ever-growing cases of autoimmune, cancer, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and extreme gut disorders. My clinic has moved several times, and one of my favourite locations was in a colon hydrotherapy clinic, where I was run off my feet with clients seeking answers to their poor gut health, their weight issues, and cancer diagnosis. The almost 2 years that I spent at this clinic provided so much learning on digestive health, including candida, parasites, SIBO, and dysbiosis, with these often playing significant roles in people's ill health, along with high levels of heavy metals. The time I spent there provided constant learning, which was invaluable to both myself and my clients who benefited by healing their imbalances. In my clinic, I use diagnostic data with every single client, generally without exception. This includes both blood testing and Oligoscan system, which uses infrared spectrometry. Some of the main reasons I do this is because clients don't always disclose everything about their health problems, and it's not always intentional. They may not even know that a pain or a condition that they have or that they live with is even reversible. Clients can sometimes be ashamed of some of their eating or lifestyle habits and therefore don't want to disclose it, especially not in the first consultation. Clinical data gives us biochemical information about imbalances and how they've occurred. We can potentially catch disease before it happens, for example, gallbladder issues, or diabetes, cancer, or even autoimmune. This system takes the guesswork out of prescribing supplementation, allowing the minimal amount of supplements to provide a noticeable change in symptoms, which you can then build on top of. You may find yourself prescribing specific nutrients at high doses rather than blends of nutrients at low doses, which doesn't really correct the imbalance or deficiencies. And once a client stops taking these supplements, their symptoms will often return. I strongly believe in correcting imbalances and educating my clients on how to live well, how to eat well, and how to be well, rather than creating dependencies. My strategy is always to heal them, educate them, and set them free. This methodology tends to bring a significant amount of referrals, and I now rarely need to advertise for new clients. There's also a reduced need for other lab testing, such as MTHFR or stool testing or other expensive tests, as you'll be able to gain a pretty good picture and good results or good health improvements in your patients with these two sets of diagnostic data. So why use diagnostic data? Well, in my clinic, I use diagnostic data in every single client that I see without exception. This includes both blood testing reviews and also the Oligoscan system, which uses infrared spectrometry. Some of the main reasons I do this is because clients don't always disclose everything about their health problems, and this is often unintentional or there's a time constraint. They may not even know that a certain pain or a condition that they have or that they live with is even reversible. Clients can sometimes be ashamed of some of their eating or lifestyle habits. They know intuitively that what they're doing is wrong, but they just struggle to change them. Clinical data gives us biochemical information about imbalances and how they may have occurred. We can potentially catch disease before it even happens if we look at data in the right way. And this could include things like gallbladder issues or diabetes or even cancer or autoimmune conditions. Using diagnostic data takes the guesswork out of prescribing supplementation, and it allows the minimal amount of supplements to be provided and still get noticeable changes in symptoms. You may find yourself prescribing specific nutrients but at really high doses rather than blends of nutrients at low doses. In my experience, blends of nutrients and even herbs at low doses may well improve symptoms, but will rarely correct the imbalance or a deficiency. And once a client stops these blended supplements, their symptoms will often return. I strongly believe in identifying and correcting the imbalances and educating my clients on how to live well, how to eat well, and be well, rather than create dependencies with my clients. My strategy is always to heal them, educate them, and set them free. This methodology tends to bring a significant amount of referrals, and I now rarely need to advertise for new clients. It also reduces the need for other lab testing, such as MTHFR or stool testing or other quite expensive tests, as you'll be able to gain a pretty good picture and good results or health improvements in your patients with these two sets of diagnostic data. So some of the advantages of the Oligoscan is that the results are instant. So from the moment that you take the scan, you'll have the results within a few seconds. And these results are very accurate, especially when you put in the most accurate client information. And this includes their height, their weight, and their blood type. It's a painless diagnostic tool because it is an infrared light that is shone through the hand. And this makes it really great for children from the age of 2 and up. There's no DNA used. And the data is not reliant on a person being a good excreter. And by excreter, I mean someone who can excrete heavy metals and toxins really well through their liver and through their skin. In a lot of cases of cancer and autoimmune and chronic fatigue and real serious illness, they are often not good excretors, and toxins tend to build up within them. The device is portable. You can take it wherever you go. All you need is your laptop, an internet connection, and your device, which is no bigger than the palm of your hand. Some of the disadvantages is that it does require, for the most accurate information, the client's height, weight, and blood type. Now, while you can measure the height and weight yourself, the blood type can be a little bit more problematic because not all clients know what their blood type are. Sometimes they have assumptions that their doctor know this information, or that the information is written on their blood test results, and generally this is not the case. In Australia, we currently don't have a TGA license anymore, so it can be seen as not being a valid medical diagnostic tool, despite it being used extensively all over Europe. This can sometimes have doctors shunning the device and the data that it produces, but it doesn't take away from the validity of the data. It absolutely is valid. Then you might have clients who don't believe in its accuracy, despite spectrometry technology being around since the turn of the century. But often you can turn this attitude around when you start to explain the data that you're seeing with the result, and maybe things like low chromium, which might be messing with their glucose regulation, or other things that might be giving them, say, leaky gut or problems with their sleep or their memory. And when you put that data together with the blood test results, you can have a full picture of what the clients might be going through. And you can often find that the clients are quite stunned at what you've been able to put together with this data, especially when they have seen so many doctors and specialists who have given them no answers at all. Hair mineral is another way that you can collect data, but some of the disadvantages here is that the hair is a source of DNA, which is sent off to a lab somewhere, and sometimes this can be offshore. Hair needs to be chemical free, so it can't be coloured or permed. And then you have clients who don't have hair. For example, men who shave their heads, or people who are going through chemotherapy treatments. And those results can take up to 2 weeks to be returned. It's also reliant on the person being a good excretor of heavy metals, and like I said before, often with serious diagnosis, many people are not good excretors, so the data may not be as accurate as you would want. So most clients have generally exhausted all avenues of mainstream medicine before they come to us, and it's not unusual for us to be their last hope. They have often been to their GPs and they've had blood testing done, and they've been told that everything is fine, and yet they feel anything but fine. Sometimes they've even been to specialists like cardiologists and gastroenterologists, even skin specialists, and have either been given bad advice or no guidance whatsoever. I've even had a client tell their gastroenterologist recently that she passed some parasites in her stools and she could see them in the toilet. And he just said, don't worry about that, and sent her on her way. The most important thing to understand with blood testing is that the medical community is using a range that is so wide that by the time the patient is out of that range, disease is likely. But we don't want to wait for a diagnosis because we want to bring optimal health to our clients right now. So we use an optimal health range rather than a disease-free range that the medical community use. And this is where we as holistic practitioners can have the biggest impact in not only making the client feel better, but by getting to the underlying cause of the illness or the imbalance. Because we all know disease is disharmony in the body. Restore the disharmony and you can restore health. So how do we achieve this? Well, I like to start with the blood work, and I use an Excel spreadsheet that I've created which contains all the optimal health ranges for all standard pathology. Keying this data in only takes a few minutes, and it highlights the areas that are outside of this optimal range. From there, we can investigate further. I often ask new clients to send me their data before I have even seen them. That way I can key the data in and really look at what's going on for the person. And I've already made a summary of what the pathology has told me before they've even told me anything at all. The resource that I use to obtain this optimal health range and to gain an explanation of what an imbalance might be is the Chinese medicine book called Integrative TCM Guide to Pathology, written by Claire Pyers. This book groups all the different blood test groups such as electrolytes, liver health, kidney health, hematology, lipids, and so on, and gives an interpretation from the perspective of general medicine, functional medicine, and Chinese medicine. And at the end of each section, there's a really fantastic summary table that lists all of the blood markers with bulleted listed explanations if a marker is high or low. Together with the Oligoscan data, which provides cellular information, and the blood results, which provides data about the contents of the bloodstream, we now have a really good diagnostic view of what might be going on for a client. When you learn how to interpret both sets of data correctly, your treatment plans and supplement prescriptions will be extremely accurate. It basically takes all the guesswork out. Of course, the time you spend with your client asking questions about their sleep quality, their stress levels, their energy levels, and what they're eating each day is also extremely valuable and should not be disregarded. And again, that is one of our superpowers as we look at a client holistically and we educate them on how to sleep better and how to eat better and how to handle their stress levels as well. The second part is to complete an Oligoscan and then review the results. Obviously, you'll do this with the client in the room. And with this data, we can immediately see various deficiencies and blockages in vitamins and minerals. And when we know how to interpret this data correctly, we can see how this may have occurred, especially when we look at certain heavy metals. Step 3 is to put all this data together. When we look at this case, for example, we see a 59-year-old female with a diagnosis of stomach cancer. This data is post-surgery and post-treatments, medical treatments that is, which occurred 2 years prior. She came to me through word of mouth and she was very stressed and worried as her tumour markers had started increasing again. We can see the mineral imbalances in both the blood electrolytes and in the intracellular information from the Oligoscan on the right. I can also see probable candida overgrowth, and this is I can see that by the low chromium levels on the Oligoscan. And that led me to questioning around symptoms and looking at other signs such as a dry, itchy skin or a white coating on the tongue. Frequent UTIs or thrush are other symptoms of candida, but she did not have these. We can see on the left, the blood work is showing high liver enzymes when her diet is excellent and she does not drink alcohol or coffee and she's never smoked. We can see with these liver enzymes that even when we can even see that the gallbladder is unhappy, and her low protein and her low globulin and her low urea is a sign of either not enough protein in the diet or an inability to absorb protein, most likely from her surgery, which removed almost all her stomach, much like gastric bypass surgery. From there, we can then prescribe things like smoothies or easily digestible foods to help her to improve her protein levels. The Oligoscan data also confirms that she's not detoxifying optimally with the high sulfur levels. And that's not surprising given the high liver enzymes. So her liver is quite stressed. Her thyroid was also sluggish, and this could be explained by the low iodine levels that were seen in the Oligoscan data. When we look at her vitamin levels, we see levels in the blood are very good, with vitamin D just a little bit low. But when we're looking at the data from within the cell, we see significantly low vitamin D, which is consistent with just about all cancer patients. Also, the B6 and folate are not as good as they appear in the blood work. So why is this, you might be thinking? Well, patients may be taking supplements, so levels in the blood could be high, especially if they are taking their supplements right up to the day before of the blood draw. But this does not mean that the vitamin is actually getting into the cell, and it may actually be getting excreted and having little to no effect at all. Take vitamin D, for example. Blood testing will test for D3, which is actually a pre-vitamin. Intracellular, we're looking at calcifidiol, which is D3 converted by the liver into a more active form that can go to the kidneys for another conversion and then distribution. But as we saw in the blood work, her liver is not happy and is over-excreting enzymes, so it would not be functioning optimally. So it makes perfect sense to me that her calcifidiol levels are low, no matter how much D3 she is taking, and she was taking quite a lot, including high doses prescribed by her GP. I asked her to stop taking these and stop stressing the liver with these D3, and I gave her calcifidiol supplement instead. Low and slow, but in an activated form, will pack a much bigger punch than thousands of international units of D3. So when we look at the health of the red and white blood cells, we see a few irregularities in the red blood cells, but nothing too crazy for someone with cancer. The white cells tell us what the immune system is doing, and we can see that the neutrophils and lymphocytes are optimal and don't appear to be active or doing much at all. But what is happening with the monocytes, eosinophils, basophils, and why are the platelets so high? Well, this could be anything from inflammation, cell damage, or it could be parasites, candida, or some other invading pathogen that the white cells are trying to get on top of. So we know that this patient had a diagnosis of stomach cancer. So straight away I think about dysbiosis and stress levels. Why, you might be asking? Well, because when stress is high, stomach acid is low, and this opens the door to all kinds of pathogens such as H. pylori. But there are many others, including parasites, that can live in this environment and burrow themselves in through the cellular walls, causing ulceration and even eventually cancer. So if cancer is present, the lymphocytes should be switched on and doing their job, but they just seem to be cruising along. Previously, I mentioned candida as being probable based on the low chromium that the Oligoscan showed. So there are both parasites, candida, and dysbiosis. Which came first? Hard to say. But based on the case history notes, I would say extremely high stress over many, many years in an unhappy and potentially abusive marriage caused low stomach acid with a likelihood of pathogens moving in, causing dysbiosis, allowing candida to flourish. So treatment for this client included dealing with the trauma and the anxiety and stress that she was experiencing. Also magnesium citrate. I used a diasporal powdered supplement at a dose of 400 milligrams. Also, I used a homeopathic candida and parasite spray called Dysbiosis to address the candida and potential parasites. Also, as I mentioned before, calcifidiol, so one supplement twice a day for activated vitamin D and stopping all of the D3. And then, of course, a wheat-free, grain-free, anti-inflammatory diet, so more of a paleo-ish type diet. She was a blood type O, so just trying to give her body a good chance to absorb as many nutrients as possible with her after her surgery. So to summarise all of this, we can achieve amazing health results for our clients, and using diagnostic data in this way, especially when we can explain why a client might have certain symptoms by looking at their data, gives us a lot of credibility. Supplements should only be short-term solution to bring about balance, but this should always be coupled with healthful whole food diets that are sustainable and become ingrained as the normal way of eating. The emotional side of what a client is going through should also be addressed, if not by us, then by trusted alliances that we make with other practitioners. This is how we heal, and we do not need to create the dependencies with our clients, and we can set them free to live happy and healthful lives. There are so many unwell and unhappy people in our communities. There really is no shortage of clients needing our support. I hope this has been helpful for you, and I'm happy to answer any questions, or if you want to contact me outside of this webinar, I'm more than happy to have a chat about how this system can help you in your clinic. Thanks for listening. Bye.